enough for her to go to the locker room and cry white privilege. Well, people believe for her intentional and dirty hit on Sophie Cunningham. She just had to sit out of the game and has to pay a $1,000 fine.
Now trying to prevent the layup, but that is just a hard hit. That's definitely going to be upgraded, I think, to a flagrant too, Ryan.
I think that is going to be a flagrant too.
This is the moment that
when you level an opposing player with a hit that looks more suited to a wrestling ring than a basketball court, you usually expect your own crowd to have your back. DiJonai Carrington did not get that. She got a crowd inside the United Center, chanting the name of the player she had just knocked to the floor. Saturday's game between the Indiana Fever and the Chicago Sky had been moved from the Sky's usual home at Wintrust Arena to the much larger United Center to accommodate the demand for tickets, and by the time the two teams tipped off, the building felt less like a home environment for Chicago and more like a road takeover for Indiana. That shift in atmosphere had been building for weeks before the ball was even thrown up. Cunningham has become a central figure in the national debate over transgender participation in women's sports after comments she made in an ESPN interview last month opposing transgender women and girls competing in women's categories. Her stance has followed the Fever from city to city, with rallies supporting her and counter-rallies opposing her forming outside road games in Seattle, Portland, and now Chicago, each stop adding another layer to a debate that has largely played out away from the court itself, parking lots and plazas outside the arenas hosting Indiana's games. Saturday's matchup was no different. Outside the United Center, one group gathered under signs supporting Cunningham, while another group waved transgender pride flags nearby, and the tension outside the arena carried straight through the doors and into the stands. Inside, midway through the first quarter, Sophie Cunningham broke free in transition with nothing but open floor in front of her. Carrington chased her down from behind, went for the block, and instead caught Cunningham across the head and neck with her arm, sending her hard to the hardwood. Cunningham got up with blood on her mouth. She still banked the shot in, and she knocked down the free throw that followed. Officials reviewed the play and upgraded the call from a flagrant 1 to a flagrant 2, which meant an automatic ejection for Carrington. The crew chief later explained that the foul was upgraded because there was wind-up, impact, and follow-through on the contact, and that officials also reviewed Cunningham popping up and shoving Carrington afterward, ultimately ruling that her reaction was acceptable given the severity of what had just happened to her. As Carrington made her way off the court, the crowd did not turn on Cunningham. They turned toward Carrington, and they chanted Cunningham's name until she disappeared into the tunnel. Some tried to frame the foul as a split-second mistake, the kind of thing that happens when a player's emotions get ahead of her. Carrington had only just returned to the Sky's lineup after missing the first half of the season recovering from foot surgery, and she had been an immediate spark off the bench, scoring 8 points in the few minutes she played before the ejection. Not everyone inside the building saw the foul as intentional. Fever coach Stephanie White, who coached Carrington previously in Connecticut, said afterward that she thought it was a hard foul, but did not believe Carrington intentionally went for Cunningham's neck. Sky coach Tyler Marsh offered a similar read, saying that in the moment he saw a player making an aggressive play on the ball rather than a deliberate attempt to injure. But Carrington's history with hard, controversial contact stretches back further than one bad night in Chicago. Her first flagrant foul of this season came on opening night, when she was called for striking Minnesota's Jessica Shepard in the head while contesting a shot from behind. Before that, during the 2024 playoffs while defending Caitlin Clark in the first round, Carrington's hand caught the rookie in the eye during a scramble for a steal, leaving a visible injury that was replayed across highlight shows for days and briefly sidelined Clark during the game itself. Carrington said afterward that she hadn't even realized she'd made contact, let alone intended to hurt Clark, and the play was ultimately treated by the league as incidental rather than punishable. It was the first entry in what has become a recurring conversation about where the line sits between Carrington's physical style of defense and dangerous contact. Last season, playing for the Dallas Wings, Carrington was assessed a flagrant 1 after chasing down Seattle Skylar Diggins on a fast break and catching her across the head on the way down. Days later, in a game against the Los Angeles Sparks, she was called for pulling rookie Sarah Ashley Barker down by her ponytail while scrambling for a loose ball. Officials ruled that one a common foul, but the video went viral anyway, and broadcasters covering the game openly joked about how forceful the pull had been. Carrington pushed back publicly against the growing narrative that she was a dirty player, insisting she simply played hard and never let up on a possession, and pointing out that the league had rescinded some of her previous flagrant calls on review. Fans and analysts around the league remained split on how to read her season overall. Some argued that her intensity was simply the price of playing elite defense against the league's best perimeter scorers, the same kind of physicality that has always drawn praise when it doesn't result in an ejection. Others pointed to the sheer frequency of the incidents, spread across different teams, different seasons, and different opponents, as evidence that the pattern went beyond ordinary hard-nosed defense and had become something the league needed to address directly rather than case by case. Even so, the pattern kept building. The league was not reacting to one hit on Sophie Cunningham in isolation. It was reacting to a run of hard, high-profile fouls that had followed Carrington across multiple teams and multiple seasons. Carrington did not wait long to respond to her ejection. While the second quarter was still being played, she posted white privilege on Threads and tagged the Indiana Fever's account directly. She followed that with a post on X reading 8/23, the date of the two teams' next scheduled meeting. Screenshots of both posts spread across social media within minutes. Fans pointed out that when Cunningham herself was ejected for a hard foul the previous season, she did not reach for an excuse. She accepted the ejection and said she deserved it. Sky coach Tyler Marsh, asked about Carrington's post after the game, said he hadn't seen it yet and would have to get back to reporters on it. Cunningham addressed the foul directly once the game ended, calling it unnecessary and telling reporters she believed it was intentional. She said she didn't have any personal issue with Carrington, but suggested that whatever was driving the aggression wasn't really about her. She also rejected the idea that race had anything to do with the ejection, pointing out that she'd been tossed for a hard foul of her own the year before and had taken her punishment without complaint. She added that games involving the Fever draw more national attention than most, and that playing against Indiana tends to bring out players looking for a moment in the spotlight. The contrast in how Clark handled a separate officiating controversy in the same game became its own storyline. With just over a minute left in the third quarter, Clark was driving along the baseline when Chicago's Natasha Cloud made contact with her under the basket. Clark lost her footing, was sent out of bounds, and collided with referee Genesis Perrimond, who was standing near the sideline. The official ruled that Clark had intentionally sought out the contact and assessed her a technical foul. It was Clark's 8th technical of the season, a threshold that triggers an automatic one-game suspension under league rules. Had it stood, Clark would have missed Indiana's game against the New York Liberty 3 days later. Fever coach Stephanie White was furious with the explanation officials gave for the call and let them know it from the sideline, drawing a technical foul of her own in the process for arguing that the ruling was wrong. Speaking to reporters afterward, White said her own technical came from telling officials the call was wrong and argued that incidental contact on a player losing her balance out of control shouldn't be treated as intentional. She added that she'd heard far more forceful language from other people on the court all game without a whistle following it, and that she felt officials needed better awareness in moments like that one. The Fever's front office filed an appeal almost immediately. Clark, speaking with ESPN's Holly Rowe on the court after the final buzzer, said she'd already watched the replay and expected the league to see it her way, telling Rowe she'd see her Tuesday. She turned out to be right. The league rescinded the technical roughly 2 hours and 20 minutes after it was issued. A turnaround, fast enough that Indiana reporter Scott Agnes noted publicly that it might be a record for how quickly the league had ever reversed a call. The reversal cleared Clark to play against the Liberty without missing a game, and it marked the second consecutive game in which the Fever had successfully appealed and overturned a technical foul assessed to their star guard, a pattern that has become its own storyline around the team this season. Where Carrington responded to a controversial ejection with a social media post accusing the league of racial bias, Clark responded to a call she also believed was wrong by trusting the appeals process and getting the outcome reversed within hours. The official who made the call, Genesis Perrimond, is one of 5 new referees brought into the league for the 2026 season. Crew chief Maj Forsberg told reporters after the game that the on-court determination was that Clark had intentionally made contact with the official, which is why the technical was assessed in the first place, before the league office reviewed the play separately and disagreed. Clark herself said she was confused in the moment, asking the official what the call was even for, and telling reporters afterward that she had looked at the replay and didn't believe there was anything intentional about a player losing her balance while trying to make a pass under pressure. This was not the first time this season that a hard foul against Clark had drawn national attention. Back in late June, contact from Phoenix's Alyssa Thomas during a home game against the Mercury in Indianapolis was retroactively upgraded after the fact to a flagrant 2 for contact to Clark's throat area, and the league suspended Thomas for a game as a result. That review came days after officials on the floor had not called a foul on the play at all, only for the league office to revisit it once video circulated widely. Between that incident, Saturday's technical foul dispute, and Carrington's ejection for the hit on Cunningham, the through line for Indiana's season has increasingly become how often officiating decisions involving the Fever end up under review, and how often those reviews end up changing the original call once the league office gets a closer look. None of the chaos around the officiating slowed Indiana down on the scoreboard. Indiana actually opened the game well, building a 13-5 lead early, before Chicago answered with a run of its own to tie the score and eventually take a 23-22 lead into the second quarter, helped along by Carrington scoring 8 points in the few minutes she was on the floor before her ejection. Indiana took the game over from there. A 13-0 run midway through the second quarter turned the tight contest into a double-digit cushion, with Mitchell scoring 8 straight points and Clark hitting a three-pointer during the surge. The Fever outscored the Sky 31-19 across the second quarter alone to take a 53-42 lead into the half, and carried a 71-62 advantage into the fourth. Clark finished with 26 points and a game-high 11 assists, shooting 7 of 16 from the field and 5 of 6 from three-point range, adding 4 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block. It marked the 8th time in her career she has finished a game with at least 25 points, 10 assists, and 5 three-pointers made. The rest of the WNBA's history combined has produced that exact stat line only 4 times. Kelsey Mitchell added 27 points on 11 of 22, shooting with 3 three-pointers, and in doing so set a new single-season WNBA record with her 16th consecutive game scoring at least 20 points, breaking the mark of 15 straight games that had belonged to A'ja Wilson. Wilson still holds the all-time record for a streak spanning multiple seasons at 20 straight games, so Mitchell's record is for a single season specifically, with more room to climb before she catches that mark too. The 27 points also moved Mitchell past Delisha Milton-Jones and into 24th on the WNBA's all-time career scoring list, and extended her streak of scoring in double figures to 47 consecutive games. Together, Clark and Mitchell, each scoring 25 or more points in the same game for the 8th time this season, tied them for the second most times any duo has done that in league history, and the pair have now combined for more than 500 points across their last 10 games together, a league record for a duo over that stretch. Aaliyah Boston added 13 points and 11 rebounds for Indiana in 29 minutes on the floor, shooting 6 of 8 from the field, while Makayla Timpson scored 10 off the bench. Indiana shot better than 51% from the field as a team for the game, which helped the Fever avoid what would have been a 3rd straight loss after a stretch that had briefly interrupted a 5-game winning streak earlier in the week. Chicago got 17 points apiece from Natasha Cloud and reserve Rachel Banham, along with 14 points and 9 rebounds from Camila Cardoso, and the Sky made 9 of 22 attempts from three-point range as a team, but it wasn't enough to overcome the deficit Indiana built in the second quarter. Chicago did not go away quietly. JC Sheldon hit a three-pointer with under 30 seconds left to cut the lead to 89-86, but Clark closed it out at the free throw line to secure the 90-86 final. It was Indiana's 20th win of the season, improving the Fever to 20-12 and moving them into the 4th spot in the Eastern Conference standings, while the loss dropped Chicago to 12-20 and marked the Sky's 8th consecutive loss in the series against Indiana. When reporters gathered for Cunningham's post-game media availability, there was an expectation that she might come out angry or emotional after the hit she'd absorbed. Instead, she sat down calm and largely unbothered. She called the foul unnecessary and said plainly that she believed it was intentional, adding that if Carrington had unresolved issues, that wasn't something Cunningham needed to carry for her. She shut down the suggestion that race played any role in the official's decision, pointing again to her own ejection from a year earlier as proof that the league treats these plays consistently regardless of who's involved. She closed by noting that games against the Fever draw a level of national attention that seems to bring out players chasing a moment, whether or not the moment reflects well on them, and said plainly that she wasn't going to let anyone put hands on her without getting up off the floor and responding to it. The night added another layer to a season that has followed Cunningham well beyond the box score. Her public position on transgender athletes in women's sports has drawn commentary from figures far outside the WNBA, including a public show of support from Vice President J.D. Vance, and it has made nearly every road trip this season carry a charged atmosphere before the ball is ever tipped. Saturday's game in Chicago fit that pattern exactly, with dueling rallies outside the arena, a foul that reopened a national argument about race and officiating, and a technical foul dispute involving the league's most scrutinized player, all inside the same 3 hours of basketball. By the end of the night, Indiana had walked out of Chicago with a 90-86 win, a new scoring streak record for Mitchell, another elite two-way performance from Clark, and a technical foul controversy that resolved itself in the Fever's favor within hours. Carrington, meanwhile, was left to face league discipline alone, with a viral ejection, a contested foul history, and a set of social media posts that did little to change the story already written on the court. Indiana turns around to host the New York Liberty on Tuesday at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, a matchup that carries extra weight given how tightly the Eastern Conference standings are packed with the playoffs approaching, and one Clark is now guaranteed to be available for. Chicago heads to Seattle to face the Storm, still searching for the consistency that has eluded the Sky for most of the season. The two teams that clashed Saturday are already scheduled to meet again on August 23rd, the exact date Carrington posted herself in the minutes after her ejection, which means the storyline from this game is unlikely to fade before the two teams share a court again. Whatever message Carrington intended with that post, the two sides will now settle it the way these things usually get settled in this league, back on the floor, in front of another full building, with both teams fully aware of everything that happened the last time they played.